Hello, this is Professor Sprout. Welcome to another special edition of Bee and Sprout. Today we are going to look at wetlands here at the nature area, and I have a very special guest with me, Mr. Hill. Mr. Hill! Mr. Hill! Oh!
Tripped out of rhizome.
Oh my! Oh.
Welcome to Mallard Marsh, Professor Sprout.
Good to finally see you in person.
I'm Forrest Hill. Pleasure to meet you.
You too. So Mr. Hill, can you tell us a little bit about the wetlands and what they are? And
well, many of your viewers may already know that a wetland is wet land. Real simple. Sometimes science can be complicated, but this is not one of those times. So a wetland is an area where the soil either has water in it or on it for the entire year. And a particular wetland that we're looking at today is the Mallard Marsh here at Forest Hill Nature Area.
So Forrest, this area, I hear what you're saying, but it just looks like a big kind of wasteland. You got all these tall grasses and all that, but why is it important?
Well, Professor Sprout, wetlands are absolutely critical to the health of our environment. Wetlands do three main jobs. First is that they absorb water that runs off the land. So when we have a heavy rain out here at Forest Hill, this is at the bottom of the hill. Every wetland is at the bottom of a hill where water is going to drain to that spot. And when the water collects there, it absorbs. It goes into the ground. That's the first main job. The second main job is that these wetlands, they filter water. They clean it up. And that water is going to end up going down into the soil where someday we might pump it out of the ground to be able to drink it as groundwater. The third important thing that they do, and when I look out here, I don't see a wasteland, I see habitat. I see a place for lots of critters to live. Muskrats and red-winged blackbirds and marsh wrens and great blue herons, dragonflies, damselflies, and don't even get me started about the amphibians, because there's frogs galore out here in this marsh.
Well, good. Let's take a closer look at the important things that wetlands do.
Sure, sir. All right, so the first main job that a wetland does is it absorbs water that is run off over the landscape. So I'm going to show you a little bit about what that looks like. I'm going to take a glass of water here from the wetland. And my, doesn't that look delightful? Okay? all that plankton and little critters in there. Who knows what all is swimming around in there that I can't see with my old eyes. But I want to show you how that water can absorb just like a sponge. All right, now this is a piece of dried sponge, and I'm going to place it right in that water. And what you'll see is you'll see the water climb up the sponge. A lot of folks think that sponges soak up water. It's actually the water moving up into the sponge. The water will climb against gravity by holding on to the inside of the wall of that sponge. So we don't have sponges out here in Mallard Marsh, but we do have dead cattails and other vegetation that has lots of small spaces inside of it. And that water is going to climb into those small spaces. The water is going to absorb, soak in, and that holds a lot of water in that dead plant material, both floating and on the bottom in the sediments. All right, the second important job that a wetland does is it filters water. So I have here some of that lovely wetlands water, and you can see from just a few moments ago, a lot of the suspended material has settled to the bottom. So now we just have some floating duckweed and some water meal in there, but we still got some suspended solids in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour this into your general average coffee filter, and we'll see what happens with the water that comes out of it. Okay. And if I squeeze this out of our sponge now, and we'll compare those two glasses of water. That's one of the primary jobs of wetland: absorb water and filter water.
And probably it's so clean you could drink it, right?
I think I probably could. To drink. Refreshing. But you might not want to try that at home. Forest Hill. And a third thing, Professor Sprout, is a wetland provides habitat. Habitat for lots and lots and lots of animals and plants. So some of those things that we see out here in the marsh, cattails as I mentioned, broadleaf and narrowleaf cattails. This grass here is called reed canary grass. It likes to have its feet wet for a portion of the year. We also have willows that like to have their feet wet, their roots I mean, and they host an abundance of insect life. And then we've got some of our vertebrate animals like our frogs. Okay, we've got green frogs and leopard frogs and all kinds of frogs that inhabit this wetland. And then of course, if you got frogs are food for birds like great blue herons. I just happen to have a skull of a great blue heron that we found deceased, and if you look at that skull is one nasty weapon for grabbing frogs. How do those herons walk around the wetland, Professor Sprout? Well, they've got feet that have long, narrow toes that have a real wide footprint. So they can walk on the soft sediments of the marsh or of another wetland, and they can support their weight by spreading those thin toes out over a large area. And they go out there hunting frogs. We see a lot of vegetation in the wetland, both on the surface and also submerged. And a lot of times we see things like Canada geese out on the wetland. And the Canada geese are going to use their bill with these little sharp edges to be able to pull up some of that aquatic vegetation and then sift the water out and then swallow it. And one of our most numerous birds here on the Mallard Marsh and a lot of wetlands is a red-winged blackbird. Red-winged blackbirds are a black bird, that has a red patch of feathers on its wing, also a little bit of yellow as well. That's the males. The females will be kind of brown, kind of dusky, kind of they're not very showy. The males like to show off. And then of course we've got a number of mammals that use the marsh as well. So we've got muskrats that love cattails. They build big mounds of cattails for food and hideouts. We've got lots of mink that would come and hunt those muskrats. Wetlands help us by absorbing water, by filtering water, by providing habitat for a lot of wildlife, even wildlife like me, Forest Hill.
Well, Forrest, that's been an excellent lesson there on the wetlands, especially here at Mallard Marsh. I'm so glad that you were able to make it out today.
Well, Professor Sprout, I am happy to have obliged you. And always remember the value that there is in these wild wetland places.
Well, I'm Professor Sprout.
And I'm Forest Hill.
And we'll see you next time.
Been a pleasure.